Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 840 for the 10th of November, 2024. Richard Saunders, almost better from a bout of COVID, and thank you to Maynard last week for jumping in to host the show. Richard Saunders coming to you from Sydney, Australia. Now, what a great time I had at the recent CSIcon meeting in Las Vegas, meeting lots of old friends, meeting new friends. But somewhere along the way, a group of us, scattered around the convention, I imagine, somehow came into contact with the COVID virus. So I spent the next week after the convention convalescing, recovering, recuperating, up with my wonderful friends Lisa and Brian Dunning up in Oregon. And I need to thank them most sincerely for looking after me, for taking my temperature and making sure I was okay. And thank goodness the virus didn't spread past me. Friends, indeed. But now let's look towards what's coming up on this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone, the loons from Canada. You can't keep them down. Although COVID certainly did try. The loons from Canada this week interview Abhijit Chanda from the Rationable Podcast. Abhijit, I had the pleasure of meeting in person in Las Vegas. And during one of the moments there, you can grab at these meetings. The Loons, Kate and Allie, interviewed Abhijit about his podcast and what he does. Following that, Rob Palmer is back with the third in his series of CSIcon interviews. This week he chats to Kevin Folta, Bill Patterson, hello Bill, and Jeff Gehlbach, another in his series of interviews. And I think we have probably the last one, number 4, next week. Thank you, Rob. Then it's the latest Australian Skeptics Newsletter, read by Adrienne Hill, written by Tim Mendham, what's making the news this week. Then to round off the show, it's back to the TROVE Archives. We wander through the digitised newspapers looking for teacup reading. I don't have a teacup. I've got a coffee cup here, but I guess that will do. Teacup reading coming up in TROVE. Very exciting to be back in Australia to get ready for the Australian Skeptics Convention, SkeptiCon, coming up in a few weeks. Head to skepticon.org.au to grab your tickets. Now, it doesn't matter where you are around the world, of course. You can get online tickets to see the fabulous lineup of speakers, including Dr. Carl Kruszelnicki, Robin Williams, the famed Australian science communicator, and so many more people, including Dr. Sugurachi, who also gave a paper in Las Vegas. And, of course, the wonderful Ben Radford, who will be in Australia very soon to start his big adventure, including appearing at Skepticon. And, of course, if you do buy online tickets, that means no matter where you are around the world, you can enjoy the convention at your own pace. It doesn't matter about time zones. You can watch the presentation later if it's at 3 a.m. or something like that. So I encourage you to at least check it out. Head to skepticzone.tv and you'll see the link, or just head directly to skepticon.org.au. One of the things you realise coming back to Australia is, of course, the change of seasons. I've come from a reasonably nice, crisp and cool Oregon to a bit of a steamy, hot Australia. And I was considering, when I get better, of course, heading for the beach. Why not? But I understand, even if you live on the ocean, right on the beach sometimes, and summer's coming, it can be a bit chilly, depending on where you live or where you like to be. With all those thoughts running around my head, it's time for me to run downstairs, grab some Vegemite toast. Haven't had that in a few weeks. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. It's the Loons from Canada. Here's Kate and Allie.
Allie.
How's it going, Kate?
It's going pretty great. We've got a special guest here to talk to us.
Hi, I'm Abhijit from the Rationable Podcast. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. This has been a great weekend.
It's been wonderful. Could you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Oh yeah, I actually started it off a few years ago. And it was kind of like the Skeptoid podcast, where it'd be like 15 minutes of a deep dive into a certain topic, whether it's vitamin B17 or homeopathy or something of that sort. But now it's more of interviewing people who know a lot more than I do, because I'm not a scientist. And I thought maybe it'll be a good learning experience for me and everyone who's listening. So we do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and see how things go.
Wonderful. And so have you expanded it so that it's not just 15 minutes anymore? Are they longer?
Yeah, now they can go up to an hour and a half. I've got some pretty amazing ones in there, and especially a deep dive with an ex-homeopath, as well as, so that's an Indian homeopath. I've got a couple of those actually, and I've got one with, what's his name? He's the researcher who did all the work in the Simon Singh, he wrote the trick or treatment. What was it? What is his name? There was Simon Singh and there was the other one. Edzard Ernst.
Sorry, it's just the host and producer in the background. I'll go away now.
Yes, thank you so much, Richard. Yeah, so it was. So I even managed to get Edzard Ernst to come into an episode with me and answer a lot of questions about his research and everything. It's incredibly fascinating.
And I know I've talked with you about Ayurveda a few times. Have you done a deep dive into that as well?
I haven't done one which is, I would say, as deep as I would want to go. I've attacked, little bits and bobs of it right now, but I have done a couple of talks, and I plan to turn one of those talks into an episode. So that should be interesting.
Wonderful. Would you say that homeopathy is a huge problem in India?
Oh, it is massive. In fact, a lot of Indians probably think that it's somehow associated with Ayurveda and probably don't know that it was created in Germany. But it has become a very deep part of our culture. There are homeopathic shops everywhere. There are homeopathic doctors everywhere. And everyone swears by it. It's incredibly popular.
So are you getting much pushback from your podcast?
Not yet, fortunately. But I do remember, of course, here in Vegas at CSIcon, I had met James Randi a few years ago. And he was one of the instrumental people who helped me piss off a lot of my friends.
He was great at that, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. So there was that talk that he gave where he took a fistful of sleeping pills, homeopathic sleeping pills, and then proceeded to give the talk and then, said that, hey, if I'd had that many sleeping pills, I should have been on the floor by now, but he carried on. So I'd shared that on Facebook, and that ended up pissing off a lot of my friends. And that was so amazing to actually meet him and thank him for that. Of course, at the time when my friends were pissed off, I was extremely perplexed. They were attacking me as if I had attacked their religion in a way. It was like just because they had actually connected homeopathy with a part of their identity, and that was quite an eye-opener for me. That was really weird.
I've found that a lot, that people tend to equate things like alternative medicine as a deep-seated belief, as if it were a religion. And so people can push back pretty hard. It's wonderful if you can get people to actually listen to you and understand a different perspective. So congratulations on doing such great work. I think that's very admirable of you.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to have my work appreciated. It makes me emotional. Thank you. I'm kidding.
So can you tell our listeners where we can find your podcast and you?
Sure. The podcast is the Rationable Podcast, and that's available everywhere that podcasts are available. And I have a YouTube channel where these things go up first. So the best way to keep abreast with the podcast is to go to my YouTube channel, which is called Rationable.
So everybody needs to like and subscribe to that so that they get notified?
That's exactly what they need to do, and ring that bell.
That's right. Thank you so much for taking some time out of the conference to speak with us. Anything you'd like to add, Allie?
I think that's great. And Abhijit has been a good friend of mine since my first SciCon in 2018, and it's always a pleasure to see you. So thank you so much for joining us. Until next time,
This is Kate,
and Allie,
the Loons from Canada.
Hi there, I'm Abhijit, and I host the Rationable Podcast on BeRationable.com. Every couple of weeks, I science the hell out of alternative medicines, health and nutrition fads, social media forwards, science news, and lots more. Of course, you can find all of my articles, podcast episodes, and lots more on www.berationable.com. See you there, and until then, always be rationable.
I'm here with another speaker for SciCon 2024. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kevin Folta, professor at University of Florida.
And what was your talk about?
Well, this time it was about why we can't have nice things, the rejection of genetic engineering technologies, and their failure to land where they need to land. A really, really fun topic. Depressing topic.
It's depressing. So I've interviewed you for my column at Skeptical Inquirer, and yeah, I've heard this at length, and it is just so sad. So much of the world needs this, and it's because of disinformation. It's just not happening as it should.
Yeah, it's a microcosm of disinformation at large. And we see all these other places where false information, misleading information leads to other problems in other areas like climate, you name it. But in genetic engineering, it has direct personal circumstances because of nutrient deficiencies that we could easily correct 30 years ago, because of medical issues that we could probably solve even better. But with vaccine hesitancy, with all the other issues around biotechnology, the problems still continue.
This is an aspect of the what's the harm that skeptics talk about a lot. Because people think, what does it matter if people don't have the truth about things or believe misleading things?
Well, it's also easy when it's not you, and when it's not in your affluent country, when it's somebody else who is on the other side of the earth that desperately needs a vitamin that's present in amounts that may be the head of a pin a year. You know, it's not there for us, so we don't worry about it. But we need to. I mean, these are real problems with real people that can be solved easily.
Somewhat connected with this, I think it was in another talk, they talked about the glyphosate misinformation.
Yeah.
Right, and I get emails at least once a week from law firms, class action suit, proving because this is a cancer-causing agent. And then they present, well, it's less cancer-causing than nicotine and other things like that. And this was developed because of GMO crops to support the growth of GMO corn, or they gave an example, at least, where it's sprayed on GMO corn and the corn does not get affected by glyphosate, but all the weeds die. But because of the GMO fears, and there might be 1 part per billion of that material in something, and you got cancer, that caused cancer.
Well, it's a little bit along that line. So I had to cut my glyphosate part out yesterday. I could have went on for 3 hours, and I had to. I sat up before my talk, feverishly throwing out slides.
Oh no!
It was like my Sophie's choice of science, and but
because you get 30 minutes.
I got 30 minutes, and I had to figure out what had to go. But so glyphosate's been around for 50 years. It's been a wonderful herbicide. It's been safe. It has an effect on plants, on an enzyme that humans don't have, or animals don't have, or fungi don't have. And so it's very selective to that kingdom. A little bit in bacteria. But the big deal with glyphosate was that when it was used on genetically engineered crops, because you could engineer the crop to resist the herbicide. The problem is that when all the anti-GMO folks really were losing the battle against the crops because they couldn't malign them anymore. Everyone had disaster fatigue. All the bad stuff they said was going to happen never happened. Well, then you switch to the chemical. And now the chemical became a proxy for the plant itself. And so now the war was shifted from the plant to the chemical. And it's very easy to malign a chemical, especially when you can get the IARC to say it has some cancer risk, which there's never been a paper or never been a study anywhere to show it causes cancer. And the best epidemiological data say there's no association.
In the talk that I did see about glyphosate, who gave that talk?
Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson mentioned it last
That
night.
might be where I'm remembering it from, yes. Yes, he gave the Ben and Jerry's example. Do you know enough about that to mention it?
Well, what he talked about was if you look...
astounding.
Well, he was speaking in terms of the LD50, so the amount of stuff you would have to consume to have lethality in 50% of the population. And sucrose is a much higher LD50
Sugar.
than glyphosate. So sugar, yeah. So he says if you ate enough Ben and Jerry's to die from glyphosate, you would have died 10 years earlier from the sugar,
Right.
or 10
Right, but the company bent to the criticism and the fear that they would lose market share.
Yes.
And change their product.
That's right.
Right.
To be and so this is what we're up against. The funny one for me is when they showed 50 parts per billion in a glass of wine. So here is a 50 parts per billion of a class 2A carcinogen, like they say, which means that it's never been shown in humans, but maybe some animal evidence or cytological evidence, in petri dish evidence. It's a real semi-weak designation. It means probable carcinogen. Maybe it can do it. Well, it has 50 parts per billion that, and 130 million parts per billion of alcohol, which is a class 1 carcinogen. So 50 parts per billion of a class 2A or 130 million parts per billion of a class 1. So it just shows the hypocrisy and and our poor understanding of risk. Because I'd love a glass of wine right now.
All right, I'm going to go let you have that. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great conference.
I'm here with one of the guests at CSIcon 2024. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Bill Patterson.
And where might the people here at this conference know you from?
Well, I'm on the board of the Bay Area Skeptics, and I do a little thing called Skepperty, which you can find on when we do our Skeptical conference.
Skepperty. So this is something that you have skeptics compete in specific question format that's like in Jeopardy, except they're about science and skepticism topics, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so tell me about that conference.
So we do it every year, although we've missed a couple of years. One was because of COVID, obviously. I think we've had 11 of them. It's under the auspices of the Bay Area Skeptics, the Sacramento Area Skeptics. This year it was Rational Roundtable and Monterey County Skeptics. And so we gather some very, very talented people together. It's become a 2-day online conference that we do that has mostly speakers, and then sometimes we have paper sessions and other things.
And I was happy to be able to contribute a little bit this year, and also to help you guys with the Skepperty. And you did, thank you. You had an amazing guest from the world of entertainment and also humanism and activism and skepticism. Who was that?
Well, yeah, we did, and of course, thanks to you, we were able to procure John Delancey, who really is quite a prominent voice in rationalism and skepticism, and he did a video presentation of the final Skepperty clue.
That was so much fun to watch that whole thing. Not only just because I helped you do it, and I can imagine the people who were not expecting that, to see John Delancey pop up there giving a question.
Well, I hope so, because one of them was Stephen Novella, and I happen to know that he's a Star Trek nerd, and
right.
So I hope that I got the desired reaction from him.
All right, they're about to start up again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and it's been a great conference so far, hasn't it?
Yes, wonderful. I'm looking forward to everything that's going to come from this point to the end of it, which includes the Sunday papers. I have run into one of the attendees at CSIcon, and I'd like him to introduce himself.
Hey, my name is Jeff Gehlbach.
And what you doing here? What's your interest in skepticism? I think I met you somewhere in North Carolina parts?
Yeah. I'm part of the leadership of Triangle Skeptics in the Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill area of North Carolina. And Rob was one of our fantastic speakers at the Skeptic Camp that we put on, our very first one in
I'll
May
give you
of
that
2024.
$20 later. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So what got you interested in doing a Skeptic Camp?
In 2 words, Susan Gehlbach.
Somehow, I'm not psychic, as Susan knows, and because there are no psychics, but I knew you were going to say that, which is why I asked. So what was Susan's part in getting you guys in? Because she's from the West Coast, and you're all the way on the East Coast. How did that happen?
Susan seems to have a real fire under her right now when it comes to organizing skeptic camps, and I think that's in service of reinvigorating local skeptic meetups around the country and the continent and even the world. So essentially the role Susan played was saying, hey, you guys should do a skeptic camp, and then telling us that she had booked a plane ticket, and we said, oh crap, I guess this is real now, and we had to throw it together with like 3 weeks notice. It was
and a fantastic job on short notice.
It was white-knuckled all the way, but it came out really great. We're going to do it again.
And I'm assuming right after you guys said, okay, Susan called me and said, you're coming down.
That's basically how it went.
And she made a bunch of calls and got some nice speakers for you. That's amazing.
Yeah, we had a fantastic lineup.
So is this your first time at a SciCon?
It is, in fact, my 3rd time, but I've had a long gap. I was here in 2018 and 2019, and my COVID gap, where CSIcon is concerned, is larger than many, but I'm really happy to be back here.
Oh, I'm glad to see you here again. So tell us about what you've experienced so far and what you're hoping to in the last half day plus Sunday papers.
Great. Well, I have experienced some fantastic talks. I have to give a particular shout out to Brian Cox, Neil deGrasse Tyson, of course the headliners, but Stephen Novella's talk I found really fantastic. Natalia Pasternak's talk on quantum misogyny.
Had you ever heard of the specific that she talked about that's infecting the Brazilian legal system?
I had not, and everybody should look up that talk if you care at all about women being equal before the law. It's bananas what's happening there.
I have interviewed her, and she might be on the same segment or maybe next week. So yeah, I was blown away by that. And of course, it doesn't mean it can't happen here either.
I am terrified that it might.
So what are you looking forward for the rest of the day?
Well, I'm looking forward to more of the hallway track, which is how I ended up being in front of Rob's microphone. And I'm looking forward to the remaining talks. The next one up is Chris French. And looking forward to the SGU live recording, the Banachek show, and also a few of us are going to a Penn and Teller show after the event's official end tomorrow.
Wait a minute, are you coming with me? I think maybe you are.
I think maybe I am. And I left out Sunday papers.
I'll give you another 20 for that.
Awesome.
Because as Jeff knows, I and the aforementioned Susan Gehlbach are running the Sunday papers this year, and it's going to be a blast.
It is.
All right, thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to going with you to see Penn and Teller.
Same here. Thanks for having me, Rob.
SkeptiCon XL, the drinks are on us. We're adding some extra fizz to this year's Skeptics annual convention, SkeptiCon XL, November the 23rd to the 24th in Sydney. We are extending the package for the convention dinner on November the 23rd with free drinks for at least the first 3 hours, which means red wine, white wine, bubbly wine, beer, cider, soft drinks, fruit juice, and mineral water are on us. And all for the same original price. That's $90 for a 3-course meal, drinks, entertainment, the Skeptics Awards, and the chance to sit down and socialize with your fellow skeptics. The catch? The number of seats is limited. We already have a large number booked, which means the remaining places are at a premium. And we will be giving priority for any new bookings to those also booking for the convention. Yes, the drinks are on us. A great convention, a great dinner, a great time. For more information and bookings, head to skepticon.org.au.
everyone. This is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios in Calgary, Canada, and I'm going to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. This is newsletter number 209. And remember, you can subscribe to this newsletter and receive it every other week in your inbox. The full newsletter includes more stories and links to all the stories mentioned. But now, let's see what Tim Mendham has this week. Hi all, says Tim. By the time you hear this, the U.S. elections are probably either underway or completed, though not necessarily with a clear result in the presidential race. Well, Tim, unfortunately, the results are known, and we just have to do the best we can. The outcome may have implications for skeptics, particularly in the form of Trump's promise to appoint an anti-vaxxer and conspiracy theorist, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as a health czar. Before the election, Kennedy said that a Trump administration would remove fluoride from water supplies, not to mention a war on the FDA's, quote, aggressive suppression of psychedelics, peptides, stem cells, raw milk, hyperbaric therapies, chelating compounds, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, vitamins, clean foods, sunshine, exercise, nutraceuticals, and anything else that advances human health and can't be patented by pharma, end quote. Now, how the FDA is repressing sunshine is an interesting concept, but whatever, I think we may be in for a bumpy ride. Meanwhile, read on, Tim. Skepticon, the online version. Skepticon 2024, Sydney, from November 23rd through 24th. Not everyone can attend Skepticon in person, as fun and involving as that is. Distance, expense, and available time are all understandable factors. And that's why we offer an alternative format, viewing the event online, which is of course what I would have to do from Calgary. This means you can watch the whole convention from a convenient location, or even after the event, since it will be recorded and available to ticket holders for a limited time. Tickets are available for a low price from the Skepticon shop. And of course, in-person tickets are still available, as well as a limited number of dinner tickets. Further information and the convention program are available from the site. It's bound to be a great event, and we look forward to seeing you there, either in person or via the ether. Visit www.skepticon.org.au for more information. Elle Macpherson's wellness guru questioned. An ABC 7:30 Report TV show on former supermodel and Wakefield girlfriend Elle Macpherson believes that her breast cancer manifested in her body because of her, quote, emotional and spiritual state, end quote. Oh dear. As the TV show reports, her naturopath, Simone Lobsher, is a doctor with an ever-changing list of qualifications that have been denied by the institutions she claimed, including a PhD from the University of New South Wales. She blamed her IT team for the false claims. Macpherson and Lobsher have been nominated for this year's Bent Spoon Award. The winner will be announced at Skepticon later this month. Sounds like some good candidates there. When famous people endorse nonsense. So what's the harm when your favorite movie star comes out in favor of some bit of nonsense? An archaeologist, anthropologist, is concerned about ancient apocalypses and Keanu Reeves' role in promoting pseudoscience. And I just recently watched that recent ancient apocalypse, and Keanu Reeves is hardly in it. I'm not even sure what the purpose of him being there is, other than, I guess, name recognition. TikTok snake oil and misinformation. Quote, Munchausen's by TikTok, which captures pithily the image of everyone drowning in sleazy, pseudoscientific wellness content, becoming obsessed with fictitious problems and minor ailments. End quote. This is a shortish book review with some interesting insights. Why people believe in ghosts. Skeptic Chris French, who I got to meet at CSIcon, was consulted on various explanations. This is a long article with some traditional explanations and some fresh perspectives. Skeptics in action. If you have any ideas for stories or want to contribute to Skeptics communications, such as the magazine or Facebook page, or just have something you want to get off your chest, then you're welcome to get in touch. News leads should be sent to newstips@skeptics.com.au. Submissions for the magazine, etc., along with comments and suggestions, should go to editor@skeptics.com.au. Items of interest. The multi-dimensional king. After King Charles' tour of the Antipodes, he apparently headed to the Salkya Resort, which is a spa in Bangalore, India, to be treated as a, quote, multi-dimensional being, end quote, whose, quote, interconnected dimensions need to be in perfect harmony, end quote. Ghosts only exist for 100 years. Paranormal expert Brian Sterling Vett believes that ghosts have a limited lifespan, just like humans, meaning most ghosts lurking around nowadays are less than 100 years old. He then cites real science words. Quote, in simple terms, the second law of thermodynamics tells us that energy tends to disperse and degrade over time. I would argue that our findings show ghosts do conform to the second law of thermodynamics as they appear to run out of energy, end quote. Sterling Vett is multi-talented. Apart from being a paranormal expert, he is also an author, Guinness World Record holder for plate spinning, motivational speaker, of course, TV broadcaster, director, actor, entrepreneur, stunt performer, martial arts expert, and fitness expert. Because he's always the expert. He is not to be confused with Dr. Paul Lee, who earlier this year suggested that aging ghosts running out of puff could do with a bit of a nuclear power boost. Haunted houses. A good or bad investment? We're confused. One story says that having a haunted house gives the seller a £75,000 boost, while another says that it's a buyer's market because they sell for approximately 10 to 25% less than current market value. Don't tell me that real estate agents fib. Deepak Chopra in Australia. To see Deepak, all you have to do is pay up to $599 for a one-day seminar. But the top price diamond ticket does get you a photo of yourself and Deepak. Quote, whether you're looking to improve your overall well-being, discover how to live an awakened life, or explore the impact of AI on spiritual growth, this event is for you, end quote. Unless Sydney-siders want to go to the Skeptics pre-convention social night at the Occidental Hotel near Wynyard on Friday, November 22nd. It's a lot cheaper. In fact, it's $0, and I dare say a whole lot more fun. Silliest newsreader story of the week. Tucker Carlson attacked by demon. The former CNN and Fox News political chat host and fairly inadequate interviewer of Vladimir Putin, even Putin said so, has said he was physically mauled by a demon a year and a half ago in an assault that he says left him bleeding and with scars from the claw marks. Oh dear. Now, The actual silliest story of the week. Rock star spoke to dead pal reincarnated as a deer. Oh dear. The Who guitarist Pete Townsend has revealed he had a conversation with a deer he rescued from a fence near his house. He says the animal was actually his late friend and guitar technician reincarnated. Who says you won't get fooled again? Oh dear. Well, that's all for the newsletter. And I have to confess, I haven't been much of a keener over the last few weeks. Battles with various bugs of the bed and conference COVID variety, which have made me not keen to do much. Now, keener is a Canadian word, and according to collinsdictionary.com, means a person, usually a student, who is a tad keen, enthusiastic, or zealous. Now, Copilot AI had much more fun with the word. According to it, keener is a noun, and it's a mythical creature often found lurking in the front row of the classroom, armed with a ready supply of highlighters and an unwavering enthusiasm for answering questions. Known for their extraordinary ability to turn even the most mundane assignments into displays of academic zeal, keeners thrive on perfect attendance and are fueled by a mysterious substance they call extra credit. Proceed with caution, as they may overwhelm you with their eagerness to help or their detailed study schedules. Until next time, this is your keener Skeptic Zone reporter, Adrienne Hill, signing off.
Hi everyone, it's Susan Gerbic from Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia. I'm here at CSIcon in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm hoping that you guys are going to attend the upcoming Skepticon held in Sydney, Australia this year. It's real important to get to our skeptic conferences. They're networking places, social activities, and just being with other people to learn new things and to just meet new people. For more information, visit www.skepticon.org.au. Please go to your conferences, and I'll see you when I see you. Thanks, everyone.
Now it's time once again to sit back and have a nice cup of tea while we dive into the TROVE archives at trove.nla.gov.au. Of course, where we dig up, we uncover, we recover, we rediscover or discover lots of interesting information from the past when it comes to reports in newspapers and magazines and so on. I wonder if there's a similar service in your part of the world. In Australia, we go to Trove, we can find out all sorts of things with many, not all, but many newspapers being archived. And why did I suggest a cup of tea? Because this week we'll be looking at teacup reading or tea leaf reading. Now, teacup reading or tea leaf reading is a form of divination, and it's also known as tasseography. And I imagine there are many variations on this, but the basic idea is you offer somebody a cup of tea with tea leaves, they finish the cup, and the pattern, the shape of the tea leaves left in the cup apparently gives some sort of guidance to the clairvoyant, the psychic, or whatever the case may be. And it's much the same as finding patterns in the sky when it comes to astrology. Patterns on tarot cards or the tarot cards themselves, it's a prop. It's a way to look at something and either pretend to interpret or be convinced you are really interpreting some sort of mystical messages from, well, the unknown. The general review here of divination in the Skeptics Dictionary, for example, says divination fortune-telling. Divination is the attempt to foretell the future or discover occult knowledge by interpreting omens or by using paranormal or supernatural powers. And I guess teacup reading falls into the same broad category when we think about it as the cartoon image of the woman dressed up like a gypsy peering into a crystal ball. She might as well also peer into your teacup. But yes, teacup reading has made its presence felt in the pages of newspapers over the years. So let's start. In the year 1932, on the 12th of August, in the pages of the Labour Daily, which was a newspaper apparently from 1924 to 1938. And this is a very short report here. Teacup reading illegal. Proprietors of shops where teacup reading has been offered as an inducement to customers were notified by the police yesterday that the practice was illegal and that prosecutions would follow their warning if they were not stopped. Teacup reading, like fortune-telling, is banned under the Vagrancy Act. Well, I think that's a little rough. But nevertheless, that was 1932. And it seems 1932 was a good year for this sort of thing because we have another story here from the Brisbane Courier, dated the 20th of December, 1932. Page 15. Teacup reading. Practice to stop. Police ultimatum. The days of the teacup seer in public cafes are numbered. An official warning has been issued that the practice is unlawful and those who persist in it will be prosecuted. Maybe they could have seen that coming in the tea leaves. A statement was issued by the police department yesterday that it had come under the notice of the authorities that an established custom in a number of cafes was the employment of a person who pretended to, quote, tell fortunes, end quote, by reading of teacups and other means. Such practices were unlawful, and when an infringement of the statute came under notice in future, action would be taken to enforce the law without respect to persons. I think we can follow that. The occupier of the premises would be equally culpable with the person engaged in the unlawful practice. Mild entertainment. An attitude of amusement at the concern of the police department over such a trifle was taken up generally by the managers of the larger cafes where teacup reading at present is practiced when the announcement was referred to them, and the smaller cafe proprietors were indignant. "They have no chance in the world of stopping me," was the first remark made by the proprietress of a tea shop when she was advised of the police department's intentions. She claimed that as she was the proprietress of the business, and as she did the reading of the cups herself, simply as a form of entertainment for her patrons, with no extra charge above what they paid for their refreshments, she was within the law. "There is no law to prevent me from doing it. They will have to get a fresh act passed before they can stop me," she added. "We look upon it simply as a form of mild amusement for our patrons, and cannot see any harm in it," declared the manager of a leading cafe in Queen Street. "Any suggestion that it affected the morals of the people was absurd," he added. However, they would not be greatly concerned at having to discontinue the practice, provided the discontinuance was general. Mr. O.J. Lansdowne, manager of M. Werters Limited, said there was very little difference between having a teacup reader in the cafe and a band playing. The reader at the firm's cafe had provided a great deal of entertainment for the cafe's patrons, and he regretted having to discontinue it. "I wonder if our reader can see in the cups that she is going to be raided," was the comment of one manager. And once again in the year 1932, this time on the 20th of December, in the Evening News from Rockhampton, a very short story indeed. Teacup reading illegal. Practice in Brisbane cafes. Brisbane, Monday. The reading of teacups in city cafes by persons employed for that purpose has been declared illegal. The pretend reading of fortunes in the bottom of teacups was unlawful, said the police commissioner, today, and should any infringement of the statutes be reported, action would be taken to enforce the law. The occupier of the premises, as well as the cup reader, would be liable. Could you imagine that being brought up in court? It staggers me. Something like that, which, although, admittedly, we know it's what it is. It's a combination of cold reading and delusion, or possibly a little bit of fraud, but entertaining. But to be brought up in court, what did they have? Exhibit A, here's the teacup. Let's have a look inside. What does it say? What does the defendant say? Well, I foresee this teacup. Oh, yes, look, it's telling me I'm going to be acquitted. And now in the year 1933, on the 22nd of October, from the Sunday Times in Perth, Western Australia. Supernatural powers. Pictures in teacups. A mushroom growth of teacup readers recently sprang up in the city, and after a period of a few months, thousands of citizens imagined their futures laid bare before them. Now the clairvoyant powers of those psychics are being suppressed, but should any ladies like to amuse themselves in a brief pastime, they may translate the leaf pictures in their own cups by the aid of the following poem in the teacup. An anchor in the cup will show that faithfulness your love will know. A bird brings news from far away. A bridge, a good chance brings your way. A crown in tea leaf signifies that you in life are sure to rise. A dog, a faithful friend will show, through scandal you are like to know. A horse, if in the cup you see, success will your plans all be. A knife of quarrels, you'll be aware. A key for new friends, you will care. If leaves within the teacup show some passing worries, you will know. Some moisture in the cup foretells of weeping you will have some spells. An oval in the leaves and you will find domestic troubles brew. A ring at the bottom means success. At the top, engagements, you may guess. Straight lines are journeys, so they say. A square are letters on the way. A tree means health, good fortune too. No worries yet will come to you. If in the leaves a man appears, you'll have a guest who'll cause no tears. Well, there we are. Have I just set up hundreds of people around the world now? Going to start up a new business in teacup reading. I must say, on the very rare occasion I've peered into the bottom of my teacup, I can't remember seeing a crown, a dog, a knife, a key, or any such things like that. Maybe I should look again. And finally, we'll jump ahead a few years to the year 1950 in the Brisbane Telegraph. A lot of these are from Queensland this time around. The Brisbane Telegraph, dated the 15th of February. And it looks like it's getting back to the topic we were just discussing earlier on about this being illegal, this practice being illegal. And the headline of the story is, in quotes, "Entertainer," end quote, "fined for teacup reading." Heather Jean Rosalie Hubbard, who told the summons court today that she called herself, quote, Gypsy Lee, end quote, was fined £2 with 6 shillings cost by Mr. Wilson CSM on a charge of fortune-telling. The charge referred to teacup reading. Mrs. Hubbard, housewife of Scarborough, claimed she was an, quote, entertainer, end quote. She pleaded not guilty to a charge that on December 6th she pretended to tell fortunes for gain. How can you pretend to tell fortunes? Honestly, how? I'm going to pretend to tell your fortune. You mean you're not really going to tell my fortune? Well, we'll see. You could have an interesting day in court with that sort of argument, pretending to tell fortunes, as opposed to people who can really do it. Mrs. Hubbard said that she was the manageress of the Chanty Tea Rooms, George Street, Brisbane. Policewoman M. Spence gave evidence that she went to the tea rooms on December 6th and ordered a pot of tea and 4 sandwiches, for which she was charged 2 and 6. Later, Mrs. Hubbard told her to turn her teacup upside down and then, quote, told her fortune, end quote. Mrs. Hubbard, policewoman Spence said, told her to have a wish, and the wish would come true. The year 1949 would be a lucky cycle for her. Mrs. Hubbard also told her that Easter 1950 would be a lucky time for her. Plainclothes Constable M.M. Gorey told the prosecutor, Plainclothes Sergeant Davison, that he later questioned Mrs. Hubbard about her activities, and she told him she received 6pence commission for each cup she read. Mrs. Hubbard gave evidence that she had been in business for some years. People just take the teacup reading as a joke, she said. It is just a lot of harmless chatter. People come in here and pay the higher price because the tea and the sandwiches are always fresh. They often tell me their troubles and go away happy. Mrs. Hubbard added that she was living in a tent at Scarborough. Her husband was a war pensioner, and they had 6 children to keep. They were in very poor circumstances. In default of payment of the fine, Mr. Wilson ordered that she be imprisoned for 7 days. She was allowed time to pay. Well, you know what? I hope that all those years ago, this story in the newspaper turned people or alerted people to this place, and they went there anyway to have a cup of tea and a sandwich and a bit of fun. I mean, honestly, in prison for 7 days, but she was allowed to pay the fine. Good grief. Now, I haven't really seen any teacup reading in my travels around the mind-body spirit, mind-body wallet, but what I did come across some years ago when I was doing the TV show The One was they had a segment where people were doing coffee cup reading. It's the same idea. You're looking at the pattern of coffee grains, the tea leaves, it doesn't matter, the patterns in the sky, leaves on the ground, entrails of animals, I don't know. And you say, this looks like this, I'll say this, and so on. Divination is divination. So there you are. I wonder if today you happen to have a cup of tea, and it's made with tea leaves, not a tea bag as such. I wonder if you have a look in the bottom of the cup, or you turn it upside down, and presumably the tea leaves fall out. I wonder what you'll see. Because when you do that, much like going to Trove, you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Thank you to Maynard for hosting last week. And thank you especially to the sublime Lisa Dunning up there in Oregon, who made sure I was getting better, taking my temperature and bringing me the odd peanut butter sandwich. And by the way, a big congratulations to Brian Dunning and Skeptoid for hosting or running a huge Skeptoid adventure into Death Valley just the other week. By all accounts, it was a huge success and people had a wonderful time. Death Valley is just one of those magical places. Thank you to all those people who contribute to the Skeptic Zone with PayPal or Patreon at skepticzone.tv. And if you go to the YouTube version of the Skeptic Zone, right on the screen there's a tip jar. Well, it's a QR code. Point your mobile device at the screen. It activates the QR code and you can PayPal a little tip towards the Skeptic Zone, $5 or $10 or something like that. It all really helps. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
Okay, I've always wanted to get in on the dice game, and I'm here at SciCon with other people, and we're going to each roll a 10-sided die to see what we get here. Let me give it to you, Sterling, first. Verify that's a 10-sided die. And do we have a name for a 10-sided die?
It's in fact a 10-sided die.
A D10.
It's a D10, okay.
But is it a percentile die? No, it is a D10.
Okay, so I picked 4. What are you going to pick?
I'm going to go with 7.
Carl? Carl with a K is here.
Does close count when we do this? Like the closest person wins, or is it a match only?
You got to get a match.
Oh, because I was going to go like 5.5.
No.
Okay, 5.
First number is, call it.
That's a 1.
It's a 1. Okay, none of us. All right, and of course, Sterling's mother, Susan, picked a 5 even though she's not here.
Yes.
Okay, again, what do you got? You going to stick with a number or what?
I'm going to stick with 7.
I'm going to stick with 4.
I'll go 6.
And Susan's got 5.
6.
It's a 6.
There we
go. A winner. Okay, and the third roll. I'm going to roll this one. What do you say, Sterling?
10.
7.
Which is a 0 on here. Yes, it's a 0, but that's okay. 7. I still stick with 4. And Susan, who should be sitting next to us, but she's late to get down to the SciCon book room table, she goes with a 5. And what do we get? It's a 5. And Susan wins the last roll. Oh, and sometimes we get a supplementary. Hell, let's do that. Carl, you roll it.
No, I'll roll my special.
Oh, what is that one?
This is a tiny jade D10.
Wow, I've never seen a die that small.
Always bring a set of polyhedral dice.
Okay.
You never know when you're going to need it.
Oh, of course not.
All right.
Okay.
What's your call?
8.
And 4 for me, 5 for Susan.
3. 8.
8. All right.
Boy, that was a lot of matches.
And that's the dice game from SciCon 2024. Thank you very much.
Aww. I actually... Hey, Richard. I just actually had somebody come up to me and say that they love my voice and they make me laugh. I make them laugh.
Oh, that's nice.